Today's video is going to be exciting because I'm going to be testing out the Nikon Z6 Mark II. A friend of mine just got it, so here's the box. Obviously, because it's not mine, my friend has already done the unboxing, but I just wanted you guys to see the box. It's a pretty nice box. This comes with a 24-70 kit lens, and it comes in at around let me just check that real quick. It comes in at $2,596, and when you're comparing it to a Canon version, then you're looking at the Canon EOS R6, which actually comes in at $3,599 if you want the kit lens that doesn't have the variable f-stop. So this is going to be the 24-105 f4 lens. If you want a cheaper version, which is going to be quite close to the Nikon at 2,500, then you're looking at getting the Canon R6 with a 24-105 f4 to 7.1 lens. And to me, that lens is pretty much useless because, yo, Charlie, as you're zooming in, the aperture is going to be varying from f4 to 7.1, and that to me doesn't really make sense for the price. And if you look at what you get with the Nikon, this is a steal. So $2,596 for a 24-70, which is constantly at f4. That is a steal for me. So this is the camera, guys, and immediately I held the camera, it felt really light. As you can see, I'm even balancing it in one hand, and it doesn't really weigh a ton. I had the R6 and I had the R5, and when I know I'm adapting Sigma lenses, and Sigma lenses are known to be very heavy, but even the RF glass itself, I know they're quite heavy, and using a 24-70 on that R6 or R5, it was a really heavy camera. But looking at the kind of work I do, I don't carry cameras for long periods of time, so it was manageable. But if this is the kit that you're getting, the 24-70 with the Nikon Z6 Mark II or the Z7 Mark II, then it is a steal because you're getting a pretty lightweight but powerful camera. This is a 24.5 megapixel camera, but the R6 is a 20 megapixel camera. But then you don't even get a top screen. You get a top screen with the EOS R and the R5. With the R6, which is quite close to this price point, you rather get a dial. I like that feel, but because I was coming from the EOS R, I was missing out, and that is another reason why I decided to get the R5. Just so immediately turn it on, you can see your settings being displayed right there. I don't know if you can see it. But one thing I also noticed with this is that even though the 24-70 lens is compact, it has to be in a lock position like it is right now. Let me take off the hood. It has to be in a lock position like this right now. So over here you can see that it's locked, and if you want to start taking pictures, because with the camera on, it says before taking photos, rotate the zoom ring to extend the lens. So it means that if you're starting at 24, this is actually the projection that you get out of it, and this is going to be your 24 focal length that you're starting with. And when you want to go all the way to 70, then it extends even further. It's not so much of a problem, but sometimes if you're shooting and then you get too excited or something, and then you force the lens all the way to the close position, it means that you will not be able to take pictures. So that is one thing that I find might be a little bit distracting, but it takes quite a bit of force for you to be able to go into the lock position. But I realized that when I was taking pictures with this camera, there were times that, you know, like the camera is up to my eye and I'm taking a picture and I just want to quickly zoom out, and then automatically it goes into the lock position and then I can't take any pictures. So that's one thing I want you guys to note. Now the next thing that I also noticed that is totally different from my R5 is my R5 or my R6 had a fully articulating screen, even the EOS R. But this, you're limited to just bringing the screen all the way out like this. So if you want to do a top-down shot, you can look down on the screen like this. But what happens if you want to raise the camera up and take a top-down shot? Then you only have the ability to tilt the screen this way, and for me it's not really usable because I use my fully articulating screen a lot. But at least it's good that they did include this feature which you can move the screen a little bit, so there is a bit of flexibility. But I feel even if they just allow the camera to sit flat, like horizontally this way, so that if you're doing like an app shot, it would be easy for you to see the screen. Because right now if you want to flatten the screen and take a picture, it means you need to rotate the camera, and obviously you may not be shooting the sky or something or anything that high. So this to me is a little bit of a downside. But on the back of the camera you have a joystick and you have a D-pad and a ton of other buttons that you can customize. And one thing I really like about this Nikon Z6 Mark II is the switch from video to stills, and that is right here. I don't know if you can see that. It takes nothing but a quick switch. With the R6, with the R5, with the EOS R, you need to press the mode. Okay, with the R6, because it has a dial, you can just dial it straight to video. But with the R5 and with the EOS R, you need to press the mode button, press info, and then you go into video mode, or you go back into photos mode. It's really easy when you get used to knowing where the mode and info button is, because I got used to it to a point where I don't even need to look at the buttons, be able to switch between photo and video. You just press mode and info, you're in photo mode, mode info, you are in video mode. But obviously having a dedicated dial to just do that, it's a simple thing. I feel that makes a ton of sense. Now when you also look at the screen, it is a fully touch screen. So right now if I just tap the screen, and I've already taken some pictures with this camera, if I tap the screen, I can easily just tap to swipe, and I'm able to, you know, cycle through the photos. You can also pinch to zoom, drag it around, and it works really well just like the Canon. But I feel the Canon is a bit more responsive than what you get on this. But I know that with the Sony, for example, you don't really have a lot of those options. Also, when you go into the menu, it's a pretty simple, straightforward, beautiful menu, and you can also have the same gestures. You can swipe through the menus, you can tap to click on any of them and change settings. So speaking of settings, I hope I'm able to figure this thing out and touch the screen properly. But you can even tap and then change settings. But what I don't like about this is the fact that they have dedicated arrows that you have to tap to be able to change the settings, unlike the Canon EOS R or any of the Canon cameras. Actually, when you tap on the settings that you want to change, they just add a slider and you can just slide through or scrub through and then change the settings. I feel that makes it a lot easier, but for this it means you need to pay attention to it. Even though you have like dials here that you can turn around and change your settings, I like to touch the screen a lot because it's a very useful feature. You can easily just tap and then change. I like that it's there and it's responsive. Like I said, it's not as responsive as the Canon, but at least it is there. This may seem pretty casual, but I love the sound of the Nikon. Actually, so even listen to the focus sound. I'm just gonna hold the camera up to the microphone. That is the sound of its acquiring focus. It's so satisfying. I don't know, it just has a nice sound. And then the shutter as well. When you take a picture, the sound is so soothing. Just take a listen. It's beautiful. I don't know if it's making sense to you at all. That is so satisfying. I just wanted to quickly add that. I mean, the Canon also sounds really nice, but this just has like some satisfying sound. Even in the DSLRs, the Nikon shutter sound, even though those were loud, this is a little bit soft, but it just has some satisfying sound about it. Here, listen again. Alright, so enough said about my first impressions of the camera. I think I really like everything about it. Before I end, actually, I also want to talk about the cards that it uses. So it uses two cards in the slots. One is a CF Express, just like the R5, and then one is an SD. So this is the SD card. And then this is the XQD or CF Express. That is what I use in my Canon. It uses the same thing. I tried it out. I put this in my Canon R5 and I put my Canon R5 memory card into the Nikon and it worked. So you can interchange the XQD and the CF Express. They work interchangeably. And yeah, that pretty much is like my first impressions holding the camera, feeling it out. I really like the resolution of the screen and also looking through the viewfinder. It is amazing. Now we're going to jump on set. I want to use it in the studio, take a couple of pictures and see how it performs. I will attach my Atomos so you guys get to see in real time what I am experiencing using the camera. We'll talk about the colors, the image, the sharpness, all of that when we are done with the photo shoot. So yes, I am going to use this camera right now to take a couple of pictures in the studio. I want to have it in a controlled environment like that. There will be another video where I take this out into the dark and then do another photo shoot, so stay tuned for that. I will be using LEDs. That is what you saw on the back of the camera, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't subscribed, this is a good time to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that video. So based on how this camera will perform in the studio, you will get to see it, and then when we go outdoors in the dark, shoot in the dark, lighter subjects with the LED, you also get to see how the camera performs. But one thing I also want to tell you guys is I have looked at some of the images already, and yes, Nikon is lacking just a little bit with autofocus, but it isn't as bad as they make it seem. To be honest, you will see it on the Atomo screen that sometimes the box, like the autofocus box, does not rest on the subject's eye, and I still take a picture. Like sometimes it will be very close, maybe just around like here or somewhere there. It doesn't really draw a box around the eye, it's just around it. When you zoom into the images, it is still sharp. So maybe that is just something that they can fix with the firmware updates, because it looks like it's just a firmware, like a software issue. It's not able to draw the box directly on the eye and make it sticky, but when you take a picture, it is still going to be tack sharp. All right, so let's jump into the photo shoot and then we'll come back again and then look at the images that I captured. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm in the studio with Bwachua, and what we are doing today is I'm testing out the Nikon Z6 Mark II for the first time, and I just want to see how it performs. You guys know I use a Canon R5. It has one of the best autofocus systems, and people complain about the Nikon Z6 a lot. So I'm also attaching the Atomo so you guys get to see in real time how the autofocus performs on this Nikon. I'm also using the kit lens, the 24-70. This is an f4 lens. You know I always use the 2.8, but this is f4. We're gonna, shoot in RAW, see how the files really are. And yeah, I think we can just start shooting, but let me just go over what's happening in the set real quick. So I have a 2-light setup. The one in the back is modified in a very small octa box, and what that is supposed to do is just spread some light over her hair, because we're putting her essentially in like a corner, and I don't want her to be blending with the background because that's going to go a little bit dark. So that light is just going to add a bit of separation. Then I have my main light here, which is coming through a 120 cm octa. This is a Light Dome 2 from Aperture, and that's going to be like my main light lighting up my subject. That's all I'm using for today's shoot. I'm not adding any reflectors. I just want to see how these modifiers will work together to give us like beautiful images of Bwachua. So without wasting much time, I think we can start shooting. Okay, so first things first, I want to figure out the camera settings that's going to limit the amount of ambient light getting into my sensor, because I have an LED light here so you guys can see the video. So I want to start off, since f4 is the widest we can go on this lens, I'm going to start off at f4. Then I'm going to keep my shutter speed at 1/125 and ISO 125 as well. So I'll just take a shot. As you can see, it's dark. We don't really have like a very bright exposure on here. So now it means that the lights that we're going to introduce is what's going to be lighting our frame. So I'll turn on the trigger, and I'll make sure my main light, which is set to group A, is off. And then I'll go to the rim light, which is set to group B. Currently is at 1/4.3. I'll take a shot. And as you can see, we have a little bit of the light hitting the backdrop, adding a bit of depth and drama in there. I kind of like it. And we can add our main light, which is in group A. And then we'll take a shot that is set to 1/16.3. That's beautiful. Yeah, and we have this beautiful, nice shot of Bwachua. I really like the dress, I like the backdrop, everything is really working well. So I feel now we can go ahead and take some stunning shots of Bwachua. All right, beautiful. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's stunning. Amazing. I love that. Okay, I'm beginning to notice that the main light is entering the frame a bit. So what I'll do is I'll just bring it back a tiny bit and then also raise it a little bit higher. The way I've positioned the octa and the way, or like how far it is from my subject, is I have like the top part, the edge. If I draw a straight line, it's like somewhere here, and she's about a foot away from that. So it's just a spill light that I'm using to light her up. If I want to get this light brighter, I don't necessarily need to increase the light. I can just ask her to take a step forward just so she's right underneath that, and that's going to increase the power of the light. So if I want to do that, I can just make her step forward. So but you'll actually just take a perfect right there. Yeah, and then we can actually proceed and start shooting a couple more frames of Bwachua. And luckily I'm using the 24-70, so I can also vary my focal lengths. Currently I'm at 50. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. One more shot. Oh yeah, I like that. So let's exaggerate that. So what you did is really cute, but I want you to face the light and then maybe put like one hand on your hip so we can see that, and then turn a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Yeah, that's it. Stunning. So let me go to 70. Beautiful. I love. All right, so for the shots that we've taken so far, I wanted a lot of drama in them. So if you look at the light, it was angled downwards. So that's obviously going to create a lot of shadows underneath. Now I just want to vary it a little bit. So I want to aim the light a little bit more on my subject, and it means that light's also going to hit the backdrop just a little bit. So I'm going to drop the height down, maybe somewhere so, and I'll change the angle. So I'm just gonna bring it down and almost like straight on to here. And then I'll also move it to the side just a little bit. So we can try this and see what that does. All right, so let's just take a quick test. Camera settings and light settings are the same. So as you can see, we don't have like a very harsh light on Bochua anymore. It's very soft because of the way I positioned it. So if we want, we can just take a little step forward again, right there. I like what you're doing now, so let's just do some of the poses like that. And also, let me just increase the ISO to 160. Perfect. Yeah, I like that. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's beautiful actually. And raise your chin up a little bit. Perfect. And then also just hold your, yeah, perfect. Just like that. Let me zoom all the way to 70. So what's confusing me about this camera is the zoom. It's a bit different from Canon. Yeah. And then just bring your eyes back to the camera. Yeah, raise your chin up. And then just tilt your head that way. Yeah, perfect. Keep that. Let's just see if we can get like tighter shots from here. Beautiful. One last shot. Awesome. Alright, so moving on to my screen, this is Capture One. When I was shooting tethered, so all the images were coming straight into Capture One and being stored onto my PC. So this was obviously the first shot where I was testing the ambient light to make sure that there is no light being influenced in the shot. As you can see, it's not really affecting the shot that much. And then this is when I turned on the rim light so we can see exactly what it's doing, the parts in the frame where our rim light is lighting up. Clearly you can see that it's lighting up her hair, a bit of the backdrop, and a bit of her shoulders as well. And then this is the next shot where I added my main light, and I can see that we have a very good balance of exposure between the two, and it also is looking really contrasty, exactly the way I wanted. So even with the test shot, if I zoom in, you see that at 24 megapixels, this is resolving a lot of detail. I can actually just crop this into like a headshot and it still looks very good. I know Capture One adds its own sharpening, so let me just take that out, and this is exactly what we get from the raw file. It looks pretty decent. Obviously this is at 200%. If you want to get the true resolution at 100%, this is what you get, and it looks pretty sharp. Obviously the raw colors are not accurate, and this is something that I always play with even with my Canon files. I don't think you are going to get like a very accurate image no matter the profile that you're shooting with or the camera that you're shooting with. There is always going to be a shift because of all the lighting that is going on in the location. Whether you're shooting in the studio with artificial lights, whatever it is, you won't get accurate color. So I did go ahead to capture more frames of Bochua. As you'd see, I'm just cycling through them. Here you can clearly see our rim light in the frame, but I didn't really care because when I was shooting, I had in mind that I will be cropping down to a 4:5 ratio. So something around here, maybe even bring the top down a little bit. press enter. So this is like the crop I am looking at. So all these images are before the crop. When I find one that I like or I want to use to continue the demo, we'll just settle on that and then see. This is a pretty nice shot. This is actually a really nice image. Or this, I really like this. So let's just zoom this again and see, and you can see it is pretty darn sharp. Again, there is automatic sharpening. I will just pull that down and you can see that we have still been able to retain a lot of texture. This at 142%. I can still zoom in a little further, and you can actually edit this into a headshot. Like from a 24 megapixel camera, this is really resolving a lot of detail. All right, so now I'm going to just take it back to 100% and let's just go through. I think over here the background light misfired, and so you can see, let me just actually do a comparison. So the image on the left, there was no rim light, and the image on the right, you can see the difference between adding a second light or a rim light to your shot. It makes a lot of a difference. It makes it pop in a very, very nice way. Also just softens the shadows that are in the frame just a tiny bit, and you can see they are all at the same settings, 1/125s on the shutter speed, f4 on aperture, shot at 70mm, and ISO 160. Now if we even just go to one of the close-ups that I shot as well, let's just take out the sharpening and now zoom in. This was also shot at 70mm. Now you can see that this even resolves a lot more detail, so it'll be easier obviously to crop an image of this size to a portrait. So let me just figure out if this is a 4:5 ratio. Yeah, maybe just go up a little bit, or maybe just bring the crop down. This will work. You can even just crop this even more, and you get like a new composition. If I zoom in, we still have a lot of details retained. So let me actually just look for like another, yeah, maybe we can just play with this image and see what we're able to do with this. You can see when I zoom in, it is so sharp, but again, Capture One's preset is there, so I'm just going to turn that down. Now speaking of the color shift and all that, let's just see if we can actually, you know, color this image and get it to look really good inside of Capture One real quick. So the first thing I want to do, again like I always do, is first of all, we even have the same base characteristic ICC profile options with the Nikon, and we even have a lot of profiles inside Capture One. Compared to Canon, I think you have Pro, Standard, and I think Auto. I'm not too sure, I can't remember the name. But with the Nikon, you have so many profiles that you can even come back to and then adjust your picture to. So this is what Pro Standard looks like, and this is what Flat looks like. But obviously, I am going to stick with the Pro Standard. I'm just going back and forth between these two images because I think there is one that I may like. I think I may even prefer this a lot more. Now we can play with the colors and see if we can get this to look right. All right, so the first thing is my Kelvin. My Kelvin is at 6,500. So the first thing I'd want to do is just tone that down just a little bit. Maybe bring it down to like 5,500, and then we can adjust the tints just a little bit to see if we do want to shift it. And I think I want to shift it a little bit towards green. That looks good. Now I'm just going to bring my highlight down just a tiny bit, because again, when you're playing with raw files, you want to pull as much information as you can. And the dynamic range on the Nikon Z6 is also very good. You can see when I pull this image up, it's not really destroying the image as much. I can just go down and pull the blacks, and you can see that we have retained a lot of detail in the shadows. But obviously this is extreme. I'm not going to do this. I like the mood in there because it was intentional. I did create this on purpose. So from the high dynamic range, I'm just going to go into exposure. Let's see, maybe just bring the exposure down just a little bit, ever so slightly, and I'm going to go back into high dynamic range, and this time I will open up the shadows just a little bit. All right, so after this, let's just go into our color editor and see what we can do. So over here I can start with the basic, and I want to tweak some of the orange colors a little bit. If I move it to the left, you'd see that it is in her skin tone, and we have a bit in the dress and just a little bit of it in the backdrop. So targeting the oranges is mostly targeting his skin. So let me, when you double click, it resets. I want to shift the greens that are present in the skin towards the red. So I'm just going to move that down a little bit, and I'll go into the yellows and do the same thing. Just pull that down a little bit because I want to warm up the skin tone, you know, shift all the yellows closer to a more uniform look. All right, I'm just going to go into reds. and I think I'll just desaturate the rest just a tiny bit. If you want to see what we're doing and how far it's going, press Alt, click on Reset, and this is where we started from, and this is where we are now. You can see that the colors are looking neutral, they are looking really good. But for us to be able to do a quick comparison between the before and after, what I'll do is I'll right click this, I'll create a new variant. So now this goes back to our raw file. I'm just going to apply the crop and get it as close as possible. So now we can just cycle through the two of them, or even have them side by side just like that. So you can see on the right is where we started from, on the left is where we are now, and I really like the tones on the left because you have contrast of color between the backdrop and between our subjects. I'm going to go into greens, and let's see what the greens is targeting. Just a little bit in the backdrop, so I will just desaturate that because I want to, you know, remove some of the colors in the backdrop just a little bit. So now we can go further and also play with the advanced tab. So over here you have flexibility of choosing whatever color that you want, but I don't want to work directly on the backdrop. If I go into the layers, you see that I've been working on the background, but now because of this further adjustment I want to make, I just want to create a new layer, and I'm going to go back into the color editor, and now when I select this and click, so let me just zoom in a little bit, click on this color right here, it's going to sample that green, and when I come down and click on view selected color range, you can see that we have the greens mainly selected in the backdrop, but mostly in the plant behind here. So this is where we can be a little bit more creative with that color. I want to get it out of the yellows just a little bit, so we focus more on the plant and less in the backdrop. Now I can turn off the view selected color range, and here is where I can decide to move the hue of the green into any color that I want. But it's not the hue that I am more concerned about, it's more about the saturation of that green, and I just want to desaturate it just a little bit. All right, and I also just want to move the hue just a little bit, maybe even just take it out of here, and let's just go back on saturation a bit more, so somewhere like that. I think this looks really good. I'm also going to target her skin, so using the same eyedropper tool, now when I click on there, you see that it has created a new color adjustment that we can play with. Again, if I just view the color range, you can see that it's a bit in the backdrop, it's in her dress, a little bit in her hair, but mostly her skin is being selected. So what I want to do is just take out the yellows, so just narrowing the selection just makes it really easy for me to target more of a skin tone. Even moving it up takes it out of her lips, which I really like. I'm just fine-tuning the selection right here. Now what I'll do is uncheck the view selected color range, and what I want to do is now just, you know, move the hue to an area that I like, and I think somewhere around here looks good. I'm also just going to desaturate it just a tiny bit, maybe -1 or -0.9. That looks good. I'm also just going to, you know, reduce the lightness just a little bit, and you can see in real time the image on the left is where we are now, the image on the right is what we started with. So this is going to be like a base that I can, you know, use on all of the other images. So if I'm happy with this and I want to apply these adjustments onto any other selection right here that I want, I can simply just click on the copy. So this is the adjustments that we've made. I'm gonna press copy, come down, maybe I want to apply those adjustments onto this image. I'm just going to click on apply, and it has applied the adjustments that we spent so much time creating or fine-tuning, and easily reproduce it onto any other selection. So let's say out of this session there are 3 images that I like. Maybe let me just select this headshot that we cropped. When I press apply, you can see that it has applied those adjustments and giving us a similar color range. So if I want to create this as an editorial piece, I'm going to select all 3 of them, and you can see that they look really uniform, and it looks like it was shot in the same day. So honestly, your camera doesn't really matter that much in terms of how it renders color, always fighting about whose color science is the best, because I feel if you are introducing artificial light, your colors are going to shift and you still will be color grading. I haven't color graded the image yet. I have only just, you know, moved it to a more natural or more appealing look for me, and then when I move it into Photoshop and do my edits, that is when I can now, you know, finalize the image and then just get it to a point that looks really good or something that I will be extremely happy with. So this has been my experience shooting with the Nikon Z6 Mark II. It is a very beautiful camera. If you want to get it, I'm gonna put the link down below. This kit lens is amazing, and for the price and what you get, the quality, the sharpness, the details, the resolution, it is a very beautiful camera. It's very lightweight and it also does amazing video. But then this video was not really about the video specs of it. Maybe I will borrow the camera one more time and then do another comparison. But so far, let me know how you feel about the results. If I didn't tell you that this was shot with a Nikon, would you know that this was shot with a Nikon? Would you think that I used my R5 to shoot this image? Let me know in the comments down below. So thank you for joining us in today's video. I hope you learned a thing or two, or at least found this video to be entertaining. If you did, let us know in the comments down below. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Don't forget to check out Zbochua. I'll put her link down below. You can check it out. And see you guys in the next video. Remember, don't ever give up.